everybody out there, how's it going? Welcome back to my channel. Just hold on, I just gotta get a little kind of half falling off my bed. If you saw my previous video, you would know that recently I've been dealing with some pretty major burnout. And so for the past little while, I've been on a bit of a mission to recover my nervous system and just bring some more balance into my life. And one of the ways that I have been finding more of that work-life balance has been by simply slowing down. And so in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you some of the specific lifestyle strategies that I've been implementing in my own life to just, live slower, find more balance, and live more intentionally as well. I also have a free downloadable worksheet for you to follow along with that you can download. I will leave a link to it below this video in the description box that just takes you through the different kind of strategies that I'm talking about in today's video. So let's get started. So let's take everything way back to the fundamentals here and explore intentional living and what that really means. And intentional living is really a very broad term that just means living in alignment with your unique values or beliefs. And this is a really key component to starting to live a little bit slower, because it's really important that we reconnect with the things that matter to us. What matters to us in our lives? What do we value in our lives? And what are we making space for those things, or are we not? And how do we find ways to make space for those things? So often we are caught up in the grind, in trying to live a certain way, or trying to seek approval from others. And it's so easy to lose sight of what we really want. Maybe you really value good, meaningful conversations with your partner, or quality time with your friends and family, or spending time in nature, or prioritizing your health or your sleep, or saving money, or living minimally. One of my favorite quotes that I want to share with you here is by Alice Walker that goes, "Take a look at the present moment you are constructing. It should look like the future you are dreaming." And I think that this is so very true for us to take a look around us and ask ourselves, kind of assess, how are we living our lives? How are we creating our lives? And do they look how we want for them to look? Next up, I want to talk about doing less. There are absolutely times, don't get me wrong, where being super busy and getting shit done and working hard are part of life, and that's what helps us to get from point A to point B, and that's what helps us to move forward. But there are also plateaus, and plateaus can be wonderful things too. Rest and recovery is critical between periods of bursting creativity or work, because that is how we support our nervous system. If we are constantly go, 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 and every corner of our day, every corner of our mind is full of stuff to do, that's what leads us to burnout, essentially. That's what makes us feel so overwhelmed. And this is where doing less is all about welcoming that slowness into your life and recognizing what is and isn't worth your time. So there are two main ways that we can begin to do less. I mean, there's a lot of ways that we can do less, but these are the two main points that I want to make here, and that is saying no, right? Learning to say no, and streamlining your workload. Really, sometimes it can be at the expense of our mental health or our bodily health when we are just constantly saying yes, or taking on too much, or taking on more than we can handle. Of course, all of this within reason. We obviously can't say no to everything. We're always going to have obligations and responsibilities that we have to take care of, but we still very much so can set boundaries for ourselves. And then streamlining your workload is the other point here. So your workload is of course related to your job, but can also be home life. Something I want to talk about here is a system known as eliminate, automate, delegate. Maybe you're familiar with that, maybe not, but essentially it really just means that you eliminate things that are unnecessary where possible. If you can't eliminate, you automate those things. There are, a number of ways, especially in business, different kinds of automations that can be done. And then there's delegate, which if you can't eliminate or automate, you delegate, which really just means asking for help. asking for help, passing off some tasks or some responsibilities to somebody else. And if you're someone who doesn't like asking for help and you want to do everything yourself, I totally feel you. I think that you can gain a lot of skills in this way and gain a lot of confidence. But over time, it can also start to be a lot. It can be a lot when you refuse to ask for help. And this is one of those other things, just like learning to say no. Sometimes we have to learn that, hey, it's okay to ask for help. We've been so accustomed to noise and stimulation and activity and distractions that when we don't have those, we almost feel uncomfortable. We've kind of learned to be oriented towards action and achievement because that's what makes us feel important, is when we're constantly doing things and when we're being productive. And if we're experiencing stillness, we often equate that with being unproductive or something of no value, when really the opposite is true. When we are quiet and we can sit with ourselves, that's where we can really start to understand ourselves a little bit better, understand our thoughts a little bit better, our fears, our worries, our priorities, our intentions. And it's also when we're able to start to recognize what really does and doesn't matter. So there are two main ways that I encourage you to try and find more silence and stillness in your life. And the first way is to simply cut out distraction. So whether that's your phone, social media, television, shopping, I can't emphasize enough here the importance of carving out time for you, carving out time for you to be with yourself, to experience periods of nothingness where we're not trying to fill our time and our space with distractions. The second point here is to meditate. Just simply sit in silence. And I know what it's like to feel really restless with this kind of thing, but what I've found is it doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be like a 45-minute session. It can honestly just be for 3 minutes. That's what I told myself when I first started doing it a few weeks ago. And from my experience, it's all about not attaching judgment to the thoughts that you're having or the emotions that you're experiencing, but just being the observer, almost detaching yourself from them. A whole other component of living slowly is also just being present, being with the present moment. And one of the ways that we can do that, whether we're meditating or not, is just noticing our senses. What do we feel? What do we hear? Do we have any muscle tension? And letting ourselves release that. How often do we rush everything that we do? Rush getting up in the morning, rush packing our lunch, rush heading to work, rush our work day, rush heading home, rush our meals, cooking. Everything seems to be in a rush so easily. And this is where we can make that conscious decision to say, hey, I'm gonna slow things down a little bit. And of course, by having less to do, like we talked about with finding ways to do less, it's much easier to slow down. It can be so transformative for us sometimes to realize that, hey, I don't have to rush. Things can get done when they get done. And another one of my favorite quotes that I want to share with you here is that nature never hurries, yet everything is accomplished. So there are many different ways that we can physically make that conscious decision to slow down different activities in our lives. When you're drinking your tea in the morning or your coffee, just slowing that down, slowing down when you are eating your meals, sitting down at the table and eating and chewing slower, driving to work slower, doing your chores or cleaning or dishes slower, cooking slower, really just being present and allowing ourselves to experience the process in a new way, and walking slower, going for a leisurely walk, a walk specifically just to do it slowly. And lastly, I want to talk about gratitude here. Gratitude really is the expression of appreciation for what we already have in our lives, as opposed to what we want or what we think that we need. Now, having visions of things that we want and striving to achieve them is wonderful. But something that I've kind of been thinking about lately is that often with more, whether that's more success, more belongings, more money, more insert more thing here, comes more responsibility, more stress perhaps, sometimes more costs are involved. There's always a bit of a caveat, and again, I think that striving for more of something that we know that we want in our life is such a wonderful thing. I'm a huge goal setter, and I think that's fantastic. But if you are like most people, there's always something more to want, and experiencing gratitude, the emotions of gratitude are what help us to be more content and more satisfied with what we already have, and with less, being satisfied with less, and getting ourselves out of that rat race of trying to get more, trying to get the next thing, trying to keep up. It really helps us to slow down in that way. So that brings us to the end of today's video. Making changes to our lifestyle, or saying no, or taking things off our plate, or whatever it may be, these things definitely take time. It doesn't happen overnight, but I hope that you've taken something from this video to help you to reduce stress in some way and slow down and live a little bit more intentionally. And again, there is that downloadable worksheet for you to follow along with if you would like to. I've linked it down for you below in the description box, and I'll see you very, very soon.